Good day, Internet.
Hey, Internet.
What is doing?
Hey.
Internet.
A pleasant day to all. Okay, everybody. I have a confession.
What's that?
Well, so Otis the dog, he's kind of been, in and out of, feeling well and not feeling well. So we went to the dog park, his favorite one, which is not close to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like a million miles away, but, I kind of have to, all right, we're doing
It is a purposeful trip.
It's a purposeful trip. Yes, thank you. And Siri, I don't need you to talk to me on my Apple Watch right now. So on the way back, I started to get very peckish. And I'm going out of town in a few days, and so I didn't want to buy food in the fridge that's just going to go bad. So I was like, what do we do? Let's go to Taco Bell.
Oh, yeah.
Taco Bell?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
I have not eaten at Taco Bell since I was like 20 years old. Now,
Wow.
of course, I'm only 29.
That's only 9 years
not
ago.
that long ago.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, but it's still been a while. I mean, truly, decades and decades. I just, I never didn't like it. I just didn't go there anymore.
Wasn't
and last
in
night
your-
it was
wasn't
like
in your
it was on
wheelhouse.
our way home, and I was like, "This is what we're doing. We're getting some beef soft tacos. That's what we're doing."
Ooh.
I was going to
Fried
ask
beef.
because there a lot has changed on the menu of the Taco Bell. Now it's a lot of remixing
I didn't
the
go
same
with any of the fried
items.
chicken
No.
stuff.
It's remixing the same items in different
that
wrappers.
wasn't what I was in the mood for. I was like, I would want to make my own tacos, but I just don't want to have all the fresh ingredients that are going to go bad in my fridge when I go out of town, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, I'm telling you, that hit good. Taco Bell, I enjoyed that.
You're
I
living
enjoyed
Moss,
it.
man.
We
Yeah,
went through
you
the
should-
drive-through. I got 3 soft tacos and a quesadilla. Otis ate one of the quesadillas, but it was good. It was good.
It's,
So I'm with you, Sarah, because it's rare. It's every few years.
Yeah.
But every couple years, there's a Taco Bell. I could go for some hard shell taco supremes right now. And it's just
Yeah.
quick and it's cheap. You know what it's going to taste like because it tastes like what it tastes like in 1987, and it's the same stuff, and it's not horrible.
No, it's like if you want
New tagline.
authentic Mexican food, that is not what you're doing here.
No, it's Taco Bell. I don't
It's
even consider
Taco
that
Bell,
Mexican food. It's
but
just Taco
it
Bell.
tastes good.
I will
good.
say the only thing I've ever found disappointing at Taco Bell have both been their desserts and their burritos. Everything else is all right.
But the burrito,
Yeah,
I don't know.
I've never done the
my
dessert.
order at Taco Bell is the hard shell taco and a burrito with a drink.
I
And I like the burrito because I'll just keep filling it with each bite. I'll squirt more hot sauce on it.
I don't like
Fire
their
sauce.
tortillas.
Is my
Continues
pick
to
for the
be
record.
very moist.
Their
and delicious.
tortillas are like
Incredibly, yeah.
yeah, those tortillas are really chewy for some reason.
They are.
But is it the gordita or is it the chalupa that has like the fried bread?
Chalupa's fried, gordita is not. A chalupa is a fried gordita.
Okay, because they did like
I don't get into all those. It's tacos, nachos, supreme or nacho Bel Grande.
They're
The
actually
stuff
no,
they
that's the
had
other thing.
when I
Their
was in high
nachos are
school.
kind
Yeah.
of disappointing too.
I was on the fence because I went through the drive-through. This was a quick stop, and I was like, do I want the nachos? And I was like, I don't know. I think I'm just gonna be disappointed.
Were you?
Nachos are very subjective.
They are.
But I'm like, but the soft tacos, I know what they're gonna taste like. You get your lettuce, you get your cheese, you get your sour cream, you got your hot sauce, and you have your meat of choice, and it's very soft and just lovely. It was great. I felt like I was 17 again.
Let me see. What's
I'm glad that it had a happy ending.
It did.
Because oftentimes reintroducing fast food into your life is not what you might have remembered.
No, it actually has
No.
a very bad effect on my system.
Oh,
Let's see.
well, yeah.
I was trying to avoid that particular.
No, but I will
Thank
say
you, Roger.
However, their chicken soft tacos are one of the few things that are very benign. Very benign.
Good to know.
Tagline: Taco Bell. But no.
Yeah. It was
Chalupas.
it was a funny, weird little detour where I was like,
Yeah.
Otis, we're just gonna do
2
this.
minute warning. 2 minutes.
And I actually asked them, I was like, do you guys have pup cups? And they were like, no, this is Taco Bell. I was like, yeah.
This is. I mean,
you're
it's
right.
hangover.
I'm
it's
not at Starbucks.
It's
I'm
hangover
not.
Can we
food.
get our really quick thoughts on the Bezos wedding? What are
I
our
mean-
thoughts?
Real quick, what should I promote on the socials for this?
The Bezos wedding. No, I'm just kidding. Probably. Oh, well,
What is
I would say probably Robb's B block. I think that's
medical
one
LLMs.
that we're gonna
Meta
have
LLMs.
a lot of spicy thoughts about. The wedding jury.
Star-studded.
Star-studded. Also, a lot of stars at Fashion Week in Paris were like, we weren't invited. And it just, the whole thing just, after the weekend was over, I was like, oh my gosh, everyone just go have a chalupa and be quiet.
It is kind of wild that they, as a couple, have courted celebrity in a way that tech has always been a bit adjacent to. And now either culture is ready for it, and specifically celebrity culture seems to be embracing it. That it's not just, I don't know. I feel like it would come off as odder if
I think when
5
you
years
have,
earlier.
when you have that much money, you can court whoever you want.
Yeah.
Well, but I mean, like, it's not like eccentric rich people are new to tech, but like a laundry, like the celebrity event of the summer being a tech CEO's second wedding is definitely new in the world of tech.
Well, and a lot of like,
Good show, everybody.
good day, Internet. This is DTNS Live for Monday, June 30th, 2025. From Studio Animal House, I'm Sarah Lane.
From Columbus, Ohio, I'm Robb Dunewood.
From deep in the heart of Texas, I'm Justin Robert Young.
And I'm the show's producer, Roger Chang.
DTNS Live is made possible by you, the listener. Thanks to all of you, including Howard Yermish, John Atwood, Pat, and we've got a gaggle of new patrons, Bigster, Jonathan and Mark, plus new patrons jumping in right at the annual membership level, Zachary, Larry, Nick, and Zach.
Oh man, yay!
All of you.
Thank you to all of our new patrons. Welcome to the flock. And for those of you going annual, welcome as well. Glad to have you for for a foreseeable amount of future. Welcome everybody to DTNS Live, the show where we discuss the tech news to help us all understand it a little bit better. Justin Robert Young, I know you were closely watching the Bezos Sanchez wedding over the weekend. How have you been doing? You know, after the hangover of that.
I believe in love again. Yeah, finally. Renewed. Now that we've seen these star-crossed lovers surrounded by several dozen of their closest friends, including Sydney Sweeney and Leonardo DiCaprio.
Was it dozens or was it hundreds? Because it looked like
Hundreds
the
of
Met Gala
dozens.
It
or
might have
something
been.
like that.
It might have been. Yeah,
Hundreds of
dozens. I guess
dozens.
doesn't really have a cap to it, so you could just keep adding 12 people infinitely. But yeah, we all know that old story of the garage in Washington where Leonardo DiCaprio helped Jeff Bezos found Amazon, and now it's great that this old gang of friends can celebrate such a
cute?
beautiful milestone
Yeah,
together.
that is
From,
great.
from
That
sorting
is very
used
sweet of
books
them.
at his mother's garage. I mean, that's
Orlando Bloom was also on the
I
scene
know.
at the time.
Exactly, exactly. Such close
still
friends.
here. Yeah. Robb Dunewood, how's life in Columbus?
Life in Columbus is good. It just trying to get to the holiday weekend. I've got plans that do not require me to cook anything, so I'm going over multiple people's house. I got a cookout on Friday. I got another cookout on Saturday, and a third cookout on Sunday. So
There we go.
It's going to be a weekend of eating tasty treats, and I don't have to cook any of them.
And you don't have to go to Taco Bell to do it either. Even though if you did, that would be okay too.
Would not be.
Look,
I'm due.
it's a long weekend. He can fit a run to the bell, a run to the border. He can live Moss in between the 3 cookouts.
Yeah. I'm going out of town this weekend for the holiday as well, and I don't even know what we're doing. I'm just like, I want to eat and swim. That's what I want to do.
Eat and swim.
Just eat
like
and
swimming like
in a pool.
But aren't you supposed to wait an hour?
Well, yes, Roger. I can.
She
I
can
can
still wait an
handle
hour.
that.
Yeah,
I
I'm
wanna
just making
eat
sure.
and then
I don't
wait
want to
and then swim.
advocate for dangerous behavior that might cause undue cramping.
Well, she might swim then eat, Roger.
Yeah, that's true.
If you swim, then you get, hungry
think
to eat, and then you
Fireworks
can swim
are
again after a
probably
nap.
bad to bring around Bella, right? This is our first 4th of July. I feel like we need a few years under our belt before we start even lighting sparklers, right?
I found
don't
it.
make the
It
boom.
depends on the
it's
baby, I guess. Right?
Yeah, maybe a sparkler. We'll see. We'll see what Mom thinks.
Or you could just do the drone show. They're pretty
We
quiet.
could just do the drone show.
I mean,
Well,
I'm
as we
going
all
to-
sort of ruminate on what we're going to do with fireworks
Yeah.
over the U.S. holiday, if you are listening live to this show right now, you can help name the episode. Head on over to dtns.showbot.tv to submit titles and vote on them. As the show goes on, people will be submitting titles, and you also be like, I have a good idea for this one, and vote on others. We will check back in on the votes at the end of the show. All right, let's kick it off with a few stories that caught our eye.
Analyst Ming-Chi Kuo suggests that Apple is developing a more affordable MacBook model, aiming for production in late 2025 or early 2026. This new 13-inch laptop is powered by the A18 Pro chip. That's the same chip that is in the iPhone 16 Pro, and it may feature colorful casing options and is expected to attract high sales volumes due to a significantly lower price point, although the exact cost is not clear. So
I
It's
would
gonna
love
t-
to know the exact cost.
significantly less. So that's got to be at least $100, $150 less than the lower end one. So now you're talking about an actual MacBook in the price of these new high end Chromebooks. That's got to have a lot of people pretty excited.
I wonder whether or not they're going to bring back another branding for it. That, especially with the colorful casing, that would seem very iBook. Maybe it's not that because the i prefix has very much gone out of style.
Or
Although maybe
even,
it's
like,
back
old
in
school
style
iMac
with so
stuff.
much, with so much of the 2000s kind of being revisited. But I would wonder whether or not they want to push it as another brand and preserve the MacBook branding as something that you would spend multiple thousands of dollars for.
I'm curious to know, because it is powered by the A18 Pro chip, if it's going to be a full-fledged version of Mac OS on it, or some sort of in between that and
A
iOS.
lighter model.
Yeah, I'm curious
this,
to know.
This is not the same as the M4, for example.
Yes, exactly. So I'm.
Yeah, it's like, in what way is that better, worse, and who is it for?
Am I getting a cut down version of the MacBook experience in order to save myself a few Benjamins?
Well, if you're a Tinder user in California, and you have to be a new Tinder user, so this doesn't actually apply to Tinder users who are already in the system, you have to verify your identity by using a short video selfie through a new face check feature powered by a company called Face Tech. That's Face TEC. The system is designed to confirm that you're a real user. You're matching your face to your profile photos. You're not impersonating anybody, and checking for duplicate accounts. Then deleting that video for anybody who's like, this sounds sus. Deleting the video, but retaining non-reversible face map that was taken of your face. Tinder has already tested this in Colombia and Canada and feels like California is the next place.
I'd have to imagine that some folks are going to wonder about the non-reversible face map, that if you delete your account, does that go away?
Right.
Doesn't sound like it does. So
Yeah,
that's going to probably make
does
some
my
people
face
have
mask
just a
get
little
sold
bit of
to
angst.
somebody else.
Rob, there are a few things that will make you forget about whether or not you have just uploaded a permanent identification to a private company. And what's on the other side of Tinder is one of those things that will make people just record their face and then upload it to a company for which they have no control over.
That's true.
Yes. You know what? your mileage may vary. I'll be curious to see how this all pans out in about 3 to 4 years.
Well, I mean, honestly, this is the problem here is the bots and everything else that comes along with it. So it's like if there's an actual user-based argument for them to ask for this.
Another news, Nintendo has pulled its products off Amazon due to disagreements arising from unauthorized sales of its Switch 2. Third-party merchants are buying Southeast Asian units in bulk and then reselling them in the U.S., undercutting Nintendo's American prices or North American prices. Amazon offered to attach authenticity labels to the products, thereby telling people whether or not this is a legit Nintendo or sold by Nintendo product. But Nintendo felt that the gesture was insufficient and yanked their stock off the e-commerce platform.
So the whole idea is that buying these units in a country outside the U.S. at a lower price is cheaper, right? And then you sell it again in the U.S. at still, at some sort of premium, because otherwise, why would you do it? But still lower than what Nintendo was setting the price at.
Yes. And rinse, repeat, and you'll be maybe not minted, but you'll be a little better off than you were when you started.
Yeah.
Amazon should be used to this because back in the day, a problem that Amazon had when they were still, most people looked at them as a book retailer, is that people would buy the international versions of books, particularly textbooks, that were significantly less expensive than the American version. And you sell them here because literally the only difference is like a forward that tells you that it's an international book compared to the words in the book are exactly the same. So they've got some expertise in this. They should be able to figure out a way around this because they had to figure out a way around it for themselves. So hopefully, they haven't heard the last from Nintendo. They should be able to figure this problem out.
Well, and publishers who work with colleges have been dealing with this forever, right? It's like you've got to buy this book to
the textbooks, the worst.
Yeah, textbooks to be part of a class. And I mean, I remember when I was in college just 3 years ago, I was like, it's like it'll bankrupt you as a student, like a starving student. It's like it's really expensive. That it's an expensive part of college that you don't necessarily think about. It's it's above and beyond tuition. So yeah, you're always going to get folks who are trying to cheat the system.
I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I don't think Amazon's hurting from this at all.
Not at all.
And Amazon's
honestly,
hurting. Nintendo might feel hurt
Amazon
by it.
does want a good relationship with Nintendo.
They do, and I'm sure they'll work their way to it. But I don't think it's like all hands on deck kind of thing. It's more like, hey, let's see what we can incrementally do to make them happy.
Well, those were the few stories that caught our eye today. But wait, there's more. Watching videos at faster than normal speeds, and audio too, pretty common. A lot of people do it because we're trying to save time, maintain attention, but researchers say it may inhibit memory retention. The Conversation reports that a combined analysis of 24 different studies found that playback 1.5x speed, minimal effect. But if you go 2x or even significantly more, reduced test performance with older adults more negatively impacted. I mean, call those older adults just, their brains just, they just can't do all the fast stuff. Fast playback may also reduce enjoyment and lower motivation to learn. So before we go through some of the notes of this, the combined studies, which are really interesting, who here does this?
I do this. I listen to podcasts, particularly at 1.5 speed so often that when I see something on YouTube and I didn't set the speed to 1.5, I wonder, why is everybody talking so slow? Because I have to actually go and do it. So for me, I do, by default, every podcast is set to 1.5. If it is a podcast where it's more of an entertainment type show and I don't care necessarily about the information in it, it can go to 1.7, maybe as high as 1.9. 2.0, I just can't. It's just background noise at that point, and I can't really follow along. But I am a good 1.5 to 1.9, depending on what the content is that I am consuming.
Yeah. I know, some folks on our team consume a lot of podcasts, myself included. And I don't do this because it just still sounds weird to me, where I'm like, I just know that they weren't speaking at the speed. It doesn't bother me if someone says, I listen to your podcast, Sarah, at, 1.5 to 2. Like, it's like, go for it. As long as you're listening, like I'm happy. And, maybe the video is a little bit weirder, but Justin, I wanted to hear your thoughts about this as both a consumer and also a creator.
So I, in general, do not listen to anything on a sped up example, largely because I am just a huge fan of talk radio style podcasts. It's how I make my living. I like to listen to kind of the intonations, and I feel like if I speed them up, then I'm not getting what it is. And that's double whenever there's a produced podcast or something there's a lot of effort put into production. I want to be able to hear everything as it was, intended to be done. That being said, as I've worked on the OpenAI podcast as a producer, look, that's an hour and a half podcast oftentimes that you got to go through it a lot because there's changes that are being made to it. And so the reality there is I gotta blast through it at 1.5 just so I can make sure that I have done a lap on it while, still having more time in the day.
Yeah. I used to do a video podcast where when I worked at TechCrunch, it was called The Crunch Report. It was like a daily podcast just about, stories of the day. And the editor who worked on the show, when we would go through it together, after he was done, I think he worked in, I don't know if it was Final Cut or Premiere. It was probably Premiere. But, we would start it and I would always be like, let's do like 2X. Just like, I just want to make sure like nothing's wrong.
Yeah.
And so it would be like chipmunk talking, and everyone else in the office was like, oh God.
Yeah.
This the point of the day where, they do this. But it really did save time. It saves time. So there's nothing about this that I think is inherently wrong. However, the analysis, and again, I said 24 different studies. This was reviewed by a cognitive scientist named Marcus Pierce, and shared with the conversation, says, 1.5x speed, minor impact. 2x or more speeds, scores are dropping 17 points or more, suggesting it's just cognitive overload. You're listening kind of, but you're not getting all the information. Maybe, depending on what you're listening to, this is background noise anyway. I mean, there are lots of television shows I watch where I'm like, if I miss a little something, it doesn't really matter. Other television shows I don't feel that way about. But it is definitely a conversation about, just brain retention of information and what we can do with that. Even when performance isn't hurt, users have reported less enjoyment of content. Potentially reducing motivation. Maybe you're listening to a self-help podcast type thing. That would be, one example of this. There's not a lot of long-term research yet. So this is kind of preliminary results that a researcher cobbled together from quite a few studies. So it's interesting, but it doesn't make it clear exactly if regular use of going through things faster than as they were intended by a human harms or helps us.
I will say. Oh,
go ahead, Roger.
Oh no, I was thinking like the few times I actually have fast forward, yeah, it does save time. But if I'm doing something like quality control, like on a podcast or it, I have found that certain things get slipped under get slipped under the radar because you don't hear whatever nuance, or you don't hear a misspoken word or a weird jump cut because it does come too quickly. So it really depends on contextual. If I need to like speed read, or in this case speed listen, yeah, I'll do 1.5. But there's a point of diminishing returns, right? Unless if I really want to do it fast, I'll read it in text. I can read a lot faster than it would take me to listen to an interview with, like, say, a scientist or a politician or what have you.
So this study tracks with what I was naturally doing. Like I said, I generally listen at 1.5 speed unless there's something that just I'm so into it that I need to really get some information out of it. Maybe something I want to talk about later. I might slow that down just so I make sure I don't miss any voice inflections or anything like that. But what I've come to notice is that the podcasting apps are pretty good now. Like you don't, it doesn't sound like you're listening to a chipmunk talk. They get the tone right as they speed it up. And for me, I tend to talk fast anyway, and I read pretty fast as well. So speeding it up to where I normally would be talking myself, or normally I still don't get to where I would read. I can read significantly faster than I can listen. But I just, you know, if I'm going to listen to something that's 90 minutes and it only takes me an hour, that saved me 30 minutes. And from the study, if I'm only losing just a couple of percentage points of my cognitive load on that, I'll swap that for the gain of 30 minutes to go do something different.
Yeah. All right, Rob, it looks like Microsoft has created a large language model that can diagnose diseases 400% more accurately than human physicians? Is there a catch here? What's going on? Should doctors be worried about their jobs?
Well, sir, I don't think that doctors should at all be worried about their jobs, but Microsoft did develop a new language model capable of diagnosing diseases with 4 times the accuracy of human physicians. This model is known as the MAI Diagnostic Orchestrator, or the MAI DXO, and it was tested using 304 case studies from the New England Journal of Medicine in a trial called the Sequential Diagnostics Benchmark. So basically what they did was they built a system that employs a chain of debate approach where it breaks down the cases in a step-by-step sequence and then consults other AI models such as ChatGPT or Claude or Llama or Grok or what have you. And this actually really mimics the way that actual physicians that are working on a panel would consult with each other. The difference is that those human physicians, when they're working on a panel, trying to figure out something, trying to figure out a diagnosis, they get it right about 20% of the time. This gets it right about 80% of the time. So from me, we talk about AI on this program and other programs an awful lot. And a lot of times it's the bad side of AI. This is one of those really, really good things here, that if you can actually increase the efficiency and the probability that you are correct on diagnosis, that only is going to help people on the back end. So I am all for this type of research, and I hope that Microsoft continues on with this.
I asked a friend of mine who is an anesthesiologist. I sent him this link because I knew we were going to talk about it, and I was like, "What do you think?" And he does a bit of travel. You know, he's kind of all over the place. He doesn't just work at one hospital. And he was like, "Do you have any idea what a dearth of physicians hospitals are dealing with right now?" And I was like, "No, I didn't know that." He was like, "Yeah, I mean, this definitely is filling a need. But if it's filling a need and it's also doing it better, then the question is, how does, the the physician marketplace go forward from that?"
Well, I mean, this is the thing. Physicians, my recent experience, there's a dearth of physicians, but there's also a dearth of enough labs to actually process and give you any sort of quantifiable data. So you're often waiting for your quote unquote lab results to come back for your, whether it's a primary care physician or a specialist, to then go through and eyeball that information and then give you an update on what their diagnosis is and any treatment methods that they need to follow up with. If this can speed that up, you can take someone who's waiting 3 weeks to hear a diagnosis from a specialist and drop that down to a week, which would significantly impact everyone's healthcare, I think, at least in my experience, infinitely in a much more positive space. But at the same time, you still need people to take that information and then process it out to the patient, which is where the doctor shortage comes from or impacts. And I think this is one key to that puzzle, but I think there are a lot of other elements that need to be filled in to where someone, a patient, will see significantly improved outcomes, because you can improve aspects of it, but you need to do a lot more than just a few pieces to get a longer term, I think, benefit.
I do wonder. It's like if there. Oh, go ahead, Justin.
No, you finish with that.
if we have a shortage of specialty doctors, and it sounds like we do, maybe not across the world, but certainly in the U.S., for specific things, and this kind of technology can fill the gap. Again, I go back to that question of, okay, well, there are probably reasons that there is a shortage of doctors, and the doctors who want to be doctors in the future, if they're now competing with something that, by the numbers is kind of better at it, where do we go from there?
But, I mean,
But are they competing, or is this just a tool for which will be applied by doctors that will come through? And what we think of as a doctor is going to be something slightly different than it is right now.
Uh-huh.
There's no doubt that the moment is not being met by our current medical community. 20% of Americans don't have a primary care physician, and that happens for a variety of different reasons that, are very complicated, many of which don't involve technology. But there's no doubt that the ability to diagnose things big and small is a huge part of life extension. It's a huge part of health. And that is about America, the first world. That's nothing to say about, other elements of the globe that have an even poorer relationship with health. And that is nothing to say about the bottom billion, for whom would never come in contact with somebody that has a professional medical degree. These are life-saving technologies that will be applied into the broader medical community that will make everybody better, up to and including doctors now and in the future.
I think Justin hits it on the nose here. I think the framing of it as like an AI or LLM technology versus doctors is kind of the wrong context. It's really just empowering doctors to process more information than what they can do in a normal work week, right? Instead of getting through maybe 100 diagnostic reports, they can go through 500, right? That means they can better serve the patients they already have, and they can move them on to the next level of care, and not everyone's sitting in a waiting pattern for like a half a month or 2 months or 3 months.
Yeah, I look at this as a lot of medical innovation over time. It doesn't replace doctors. It just makes doctors more effective at what they do. Personal story, I actually have a friend who just had a procedure done. The procedure was done 100% by robot, and 2 incisions that literally about a 1/4 inch in size. The same surgery 15 years ago would have required an extensive amount of recovery, because they would have had to cut through you to get to the thing that they actually repaired. So, so do we want to have less doctors that are literally have to cut through people to get to the things they want to repair? Yes, I want less of that. I want better outcomes with less pain. And I think this here, it really just gets doctors to where doctors are still ultimately going to make the final prognosis. They're using the AI as a tool in these situations. The doctors aren't going anywhere, but what the LLM can do is the LLM can remember everything that has ever been inputted into it, and every study that's ever been done on a particular thing. The doctors can only consume so much, and then they can remember significantly less. So in the old way, it was based off of, do these panel of doctors remember reading the article or remember reading the journal about the thing that they think you might have, where that's not going to be a case for the LLM. The LLM will absolutely know that this is something that I have information on, because it has the access to all knowledge essentially that has been inputted into it. So I think that this is just a way to ultimately help doctors do their job significantly more effectively, which is going to lead to better outcomes.
It kind of, this sort of almost goes back to our previous conversation about humans listening to things too quickly and just not retaining information. Not that doctors are doing this necessarily, but we've probably all been to a doctor at one point, and nothing against the doctor, because they've got, they've got a full plate. The life of a doctor, I salute you, doctors across the world. But, I've been sometimes in the doctor's office, and they'll kind of ask me something, and I'm like, it's in my chart. Don't you already know this?
Yeah.
But the doctor is like, they're not trying to be a craphead to me, but they're overloaded.
They have 50 plus patients.
I will. Yeah. I cannot wait until I have options. The second that I find a doctor that puts two different things, technologies in my hands, both of which are available right now. Number one, at the very least, asks for the data for which I track every single day with a wearable on my wrist. No doctor has ever even asked me for that. I would presume that that would be good information for them. And number two, let me just have a sanctioned LLM that I can talk to that feeds into my chart. So now you have a sense of what I have
like
done
if you have
and gone
15
through.
minutes with me at our next appointment, it's like,
Yeah.
like you get the breakdown of what we need to talk about, rather than being like, "Hi there, I'm
Or-
Dr. So-and-so. How are
I
you
know,
today?"
because right now I see a doctor once a year, and the first question they ask me is, "Please do a 10-minute summary of your health over the last 12 months."
I mean, ideally, this would save them time. So instead of doing a 15-minute visit, they can maybe pry that out into half an hour at least. But I mean, this is a tool, and there's a benefit to it. It will not make up for the lack of shortage of doctors due to certain demographic realities in the system, but it will be beneficial, I think, in the long term. But I mean, it's a work in progress, and hopefully it comes more widespread sooner rather than later.
So we should just note that Microsoft has not yet announced plans for implementation of this. It's still just something that they were trying around, and they would need to do significantly more clinical trials involving actual patients if this was to move forward. So it's not there yet. This was just a study of journals. If we want to take this further, we actually have to get a little bit further into the weeds with this from a Microsoft standpoint, who actually came out with this technology.
Well, I've got a hunch that some of you have thoughts on this. If you want to hear us talk about more medical tech on the show or anything else, one way to let us know is in our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on others to rise to the top at reddit.com/r/Daily Tech News Show. All right, Justin, over the weekend, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney rescinded his government's plan to tax U.S. technology firms in order to resume trade talks after the U.S. president announced it was suspending trade talks Friday because of these. So what has happened since then?
Well, there are, I am hearing reports by way of reporting for PX3 that there are trade deals that the White House would like to announce next week. They're in their dream scenario. They're going to sign this legislation that they're moving through Congress at the end of this week, and then they're going to announce trade deals. They would like for Canada to be a part of that, and apparently the negotiations have been going fruitfully until there was a snag with this digital tax. And we can get into the specifics of this tax, but what I found interesting amongst everything that is unique about this administration's economic negotiations worldwide is that it also does seem to be taking seriously defending American information services companies in a way that previous administrations have looked at things like physical manufacturing or agriculture, meaning that American exports need to be treated in a certain way if you want to have a relationship with the United States. Before Trump, this has been the basis of any and all trade deals, in the past several decades. But Trump obviously has taken a lot more of an aggressive stance toward it, and specifically to places like Canada and the European Union. Big tech, specifically Google and Facebook, have long complained about what they viewed as aggressive or onerous regulations from specifically the European Union. And I found that to be very, very interesting, that what Donald Trump did here is something that he has done with other industries, including right now there's a fight with Japan in cars, that it seems like he wanted to leverage the entire deal against American information services companies, big tech, being protected, which is something that I can't remember.
So, in your opinion, Is this a good thing? Is it a bad thing, or is it just the new thing that we are dealing with?
Yeah. Is the new normal good or bad, Justin?
Well, I think it really depends. It's clearly good for big tech because big tech, we've looked at them as these gigantic monoliths where it's like, all right, so now Europe wants them to pay several $billion, and it's like, well, big tech, they can afford it. This was going to be a law that would have retroactively billed a lot of these companies. So I believe most of the companies that were subject to it would have immediately had a $2 billion bill owed to the Canadian government within a month's time. I don't know. I guess it really depends on how much you look at companies like Facebook and Google as A, American companies that should be protected, and B, that they are being taken advantage of by foreign governments. I mean, if you believe that they are American companies that should be given protection by American interest or should be folded into larger deals, that they should not be treated unfairly, then it's good. If you believe that big tech is something that needs to be taxed, no matter who does it, America or the rest of the world, and in fact, America should do it more, then this is probably not great.
So to make sure that I understand clearly what's going on here, we ultimately other countries are taxing. Essentially, they're putting tariffs on on the technology that's coming out of companies like Facebook, companies like Google, companies like I shouldn't say Facebook, I should say Meta, but the big tech companies, they are taxing them, and we are now saying, hey, but before you do that, just know that we are going to react in this way. So it could be not it's going to be advantageous for us to tax you on some things that are coming here. Is that basically what's happening?
I don't want to step on Justin, but I think that's a mischaracterization of what's happening. They are taxing firms that are operating in Canada with Canadians, so they're making money off Canadians, and they say we're going to tax you at a certain level. There was a international sort of movement around governments to kind of come up with a framework on how to tax transnational companies. That means, and not just tech companies, but many transnational companies that operate in different sovereign countries, so that they can all figure out how do we get them to quit playing whack-a-mole so they can hide a majority of their income away from any sort of taxation, whether it's like what they used to call the double Irish in the EU, where a lot of tech companies basically headquartered in Ireland so they could do some, basically sophisticated accounting to get around a lot of the more onerous taxes across the EU. And, we kind of do it in the U.S., right? That's why you start a company in Delaware, right? Because you do get certain corporate benefits by having a P.O. box based in that locale. And so the idea was that instead of just chasing these companies from one place to another, you could have a grand framework where everyone agrees to it and say, hey, we're all going to tax these guys this amount of money. And so they won't have any place to kind of hide or kind of stash their wealth, so to speak. But I don't know if this changes that entire calculus now that, this current administration is now going to bat for Silicon Valley.
So right now, to use a non-tech example, the United States is negotiating a trade deal with Japan. And the big sticking point is cars. Specifically, how many American cars are going to be allowed to be sold in Japan. Japan has specific rules on what can and can't be sold there. And so it is harder to sell an American car in Japan. And so now they want to be able to negotiate a deal so more American cars can be sold there. And as we have seen with many things with the Trump administration, they are willing to pull the entire deal off the table unless they get movement on this sticking point. That is similar to what we are seeing here, where the law that was going to be put in Canada was something that Silicon Valley looked at as an onerous rule that would either put them on the hook for a lot of money going out, or they would have to restrict their access in Canada, where they would be denied global user base. And so in both of these scenarios, you have a worldview of a White House that says these companies are in America, which means America should use all of its levers of influence to make sure that American companies have the greatest reach to sell everywhere in the world, because we also have the biggest consumer base globally. So for access into our consumer base, you need to have a greater acceptance of American product. And what is unique here is that no one has ever looked at information services, social media, internet services as something that would ever be kind of protected before. And now it does seem like Silicon Valley has a different relationship with this White House than they have in the past.
I will add that the previous Biden administration was sort of against this Canadian digital tax as well. However, the framework was, why don't you hold off on it until all the industrialized nations can come to an agreement on a broad-based, taxation framework. So we don't have to play whack-a-mole. And that was kind of the idea, but it never really, as you can see, got much traction.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. The global tax stuff was very much an internationalist solution that I think is kind of I think the moment might have been missed for that. I think that probably would have hit maybe 5 or 10 years ago. I don't know if we're in that moment right now globally.
And for a long time, this has been sort of the sort of kind of the rules of the road when it comes to cultural products. A lot of countries, with the U.S. being a prime exception, definitely do certain tax benefits as well as taxation regimes for cultural products, whether it's television, radio, and they give allowances, which is why Netflix was so busy investing heavily in European markets, in Canadian markets, and Australian markets in order to kind of bypass any sort of future legislation that would impact their bottom dollar by saying, hey, we've invested in your country. We're making French shows about French stories about French people. We are just as French as, a local production company or whatever, and that's, there's a lot of it, and it's something that's existed for the past 100+ years.
The last word on this is, I would say it's one thing to back down Canada on a deal like this. It will be very interesting in a broad, sweeping European Union trade deal to see how they deal with this stuff, because nobody has regulated Silicon Valley for the amount of money that the European Union has. And that if you want a big target that Silicon Valley would like the White House to start negotiating hard about, that's exactly where they would point.
Well, moving into the classroom, everyone. AI in the classroom. People have different thoughts about it. Controversial topic. Today, Google announced over 30 AI tools for educators at the International Society for Technology and Education EdTech Conference in Houston, or ISTE. So, Roger, I know you've been following in this one.
So Google introduced a suite of new Gemini AI as well as Notebook LM tools that are designed, they say explicitly, for educators and for the classroom. Teachers will be given tools to create interactive study guides using the AI research tool Notebook LM, along with their classroom materials. Teachers can also build custom versions of the Gemini AI called gems that can help students who need extra support or want better to understand a subject. In other words, you can create something that's very specific. For example, a gerund in grammar. You could have like a low gerund, a chatbot. Plus, the company will expand its basic access to Google Vids, its AI-powered video creator, to all Google Workspace for education users. And Google will also be rolling out a series of new features designed to track student progress against learning standards and skills. Now, I went through a lot of it. It was a huge deluge of products. They what are some of the things that they introduced? Gemini for Education. It's based on Gemini 2.5 app. They have a tool that allows interactive quiz in Gemini Canvas. They have Gemini Live, which will allow students to have conversations with the Gemini app, giving, sort of voice commands, as well as getting brainstorming ideas and sort of contextually rich learning opportunities. I don't really know what that means. This is just, for me, it seems like a lot of marketing speak at this point. But one of the cool things I thought they did was have Gemini and Forms, basically use Gemini to do sort of student assessment and surveys on the learning material, so you could create a presentation instead of having the teacher at the end of the day kind of do this all by hand. But my bigger question is, some of this stuff looks good. Some of it for me seems still a giant question mark in the head. But for a teacher, this seems like a lot of stuff to pick up and figure out how to use and learn and to implement in their classroom. My kids currently go to a school that uses Google Chromebook for some of their take-home homework, and for me, some of the experiences can be sort of mixed. The teacher really needs to be on it when it comes to developing the syllabus around these, but also making sure they keep all that stuff up to date. I'm worried this is just going to be a bunch of things that, school districts just might shove in teachers' faces to figure out how to use this. This sounds great. We're going to have, we're going to be able to do more with less. But teachers are going to spend a lot more time during the work day, during the work week,
trying to figure out how to use these tools.
And use it in a way that benefits the students and doesn't just say
assuming that you're a teacher who loves children, because that's why, you chose this profession. My dad was an elementary school teacher, and I don't know. I mean, he's no longer with us, but boy, I cannot imagine him. He would just be like, no, get this out of here. This is, it's too much. It's adding complications where there don't need to be any. What I wonder about, and I'm sure a lot of parents and and guardians of kids who are in stuff like this wonder, okay, well, how much is the teacher with new tools being that specific, unique teacher that they're so good at, that the kids love, right? And I think about this. I almost liken it to if we do this show and we just sort of say hey, ChatGPT, write the show for us. It's like, we could do it, but it would strip out so much personality. And yeah, I just think, especially for the younger set with teachers, a lot of the stuff it's probably a great tool. Hey, some teachers are going to be like, this is great. Makes my life way easier. Other teachers say maybe not so much.
I would imagine that Google is probably going to, with all of these AI tools, do things similar to they did with Google Workspace and with Chromebooks. They will provide as much support as they can to teachers to teach teachers how to use their stuff, to get their students to use their stuff as possible. Because if they can win here, if they can actually get teachers to use their stuff, and by teachers using them, students will also use them, you now have captured a generation. Me, I'm probably the oldest one on the show here. I went to school in the, high school in the 80s and the 90s, but I remember being in grade school. I remember walking in with a TI, I can't even remember what it was, but like a graphing calculator. And I knew more about how to use that calculator than my teacher did. Why? My dad's a tool and die engineer, and he showed me how to use it because this is what he used at work all the time. But I was early enough to where I had one very early on because I just grabbed one of dad's old ones, and I was able to do a lot of graphing in like 7th and 8th grade. And my teacher's like, oh, this is really cool. And I distinctly remember a teacher saying, I need to learn how to use one of these. And then today, we don't even think about that. Every student in high school in any type of advanced math class is going to be using a graphing calculator or software on a Chromebook that will do the exact same level of graphing or even more. Yeah, I think the other go ahead.
Oh no, and I think that's a good point. I guess my concern is you need to have a set of tools that make sense for the workflow of the teacher, not just because let's find all the possible use cases for a product and let's just shove them out there and see what sticks or not. Because you're oftentimes dealing with a very time-crunched environment. Like, teachers don't have enough time as it is. My school, they take an extra hour off Thursday, so school starts later, so they supposedly can get work done.
Would we rather that the LLM companies not put out educational tools for fear that they will clutter the educational landscape?
I'm thinking more just have some. I mean, You know,
It has to be something I think the teacher can
If-
absorb and be like, okay.
Yeah, but that's up to the teacher, though, right? I mean, if anybody
Well,
is
it is
putting
up to
out
the teacher,
educational
but-
resources for
Well,
from
it's-
the
it's like
toolmaker perspective,
It's also, I mean, haven't we all had that favorite teacher, back in the day where it was like,
course.
was the teacher really the smartest person in the world? Maybe not, but you loved that teacher. You had fun learning. That was a big part of school. If you have a teacher who's like, yeah, here's your assignment, it's like, oh, okay. Like the good teachers really stand out because they hit the students different. Well, they don't hit
Yeah.
them at all, but you know what I mean.
Metaphorically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that's where, if you've got all this new knowledge and you can use that to your advantage as a teacher, as an instructor, as a professor, whatever, I think that's really great in theory. I just think, not all
goal
teachers
here
are the
is-
same.
All right, so from the perspective of Google, they are worried, and rightly so, that something that has a seismic hold, their technology is being used a lot. LLMs are being used a lot by younger cohorts. They are the ones in school right now. The fear is that these LLMs are going to ruin education as we know it, that it will create a generation of zombies who do not think for themselves. Let's ignore for a second that that's been the same argument that you said about Google and you said about Wikipedia and you said about everything else, right? But let's understand that that is the current fear that is gripping these people. I don't blame Google for making as many educational tools as they possibly can and putting them in the hands of educators to say, look, we want to be part of the solution. We want to make sure that you are living a better life. You are educating your students better. I understand the idea that these are probably going to be raw. They might not be ready to be put in. And even on edge cases like Roger mentioned, you might have people that up the chain want to force usage into the classroom because they're afraid that they will be falling out of favor or that they will be losing their edge in terms of teaching kids how to use them. But I don't think that that's on Google. I think that that's the responsibility on the teachers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't say to you. I think it's more of a responsibility on the education district or school district or the department of whatever schools. But no, I'm not, it's not so much I'm being critical of Google. I just think that there should be an understanding that you can throw a lot of things but at some point you're just going to reach a level where everyone just throws up their hand and just uses the one for everything, which may not be the best outcome.
Yeah, I don't see that because we said that about calculators, and then we said that about computers, and then we said that about about Wikipedia. I remember Wikipedia being the thing. You can't have access to all knowledge. Students are going to learn anything, and it's like, no. If you use that access to all knowledge in the right way, students can be pretty inventive in the things that they come up with. And I think this is just another case of that. I will concede the point that LLMs are different because they're so big and they touch so many things. But I think the effect on students eventually will be the same. It's going to be another tool that students ultimately are going to learn how to use because teachers learn how to teach them how to use.
And again, I'm not against the tools. I'm just there really needs to be a way that allows them or allows teachers to integrate it into the workflow into a already crowded system. You're not going to drop a giant, a swimming pool amount of water on a person who's dying of thirst because, they might be thirsty, but they don't need, Olympic-sized pool amount of water, right? I think what
I can't wait until we make a gem for metaphor checking.
Fine, we'll do that. But no, it's realistically, it's not that I'm against these technologies. I think if implemented well, they can be great. I think we're at the stage where everyone, again, is just throwing stuff on the wall to see what sticks. And I don't know if that's generally the best way to approach this particular challenge.
Well, if you work in education, we would love to hear from you. Maybe something we talked about sparked a response. You'd like to let us know. And one way to do that is in the mailbag. So let's check it out.
Are you the person that is always worried about missing your connecting flight? Well, Chris Christensen has news from United that may make you a bit more relaxed. And I'm that person, so I want.
This is Chris Christensen from Amateur Traveler with another Tech in Travel Minute. In this summer flight season, when flights are full and often delayed with thunderstorms and other weather conditions, United has a new feature in their app which enables travelers with connecting flights to know their departure status and receive notification if their flight is being held for them. I don't know if you've had that issue where you're trying to figure out whether or not you're going to make your connecting flight. I was just flying from Montreal through Chicago. Fortunately, I had given United my mobile number, and so they texted me hours ahead of time that there were thunderstorms in Chicago, and I was able to reroute as they waived the change fee. But a friend who was flying through the same route but on a different airline possibly hadn't given their number and had no idea that there were thunderstorms until hours later, and probably missed that connection. So anything like this that helps you get where you're going is a great addition. This is Chris Christensen from Amateur Traveler.
Well, although I have a love-hate relationship with United Airlines, that is my airline of points, so I'm into it. I also once, Justin, I probably told you this story before. Mm-hmm. if you, I would tell anybody who would listen at the time, but I was once flying into Fort Lauderdale to go to Miami for the weekend, girls' weekend, and there were thunderstorms, and guess where we landed? Sarasota. Yep.
That is the wrong side of the state for those
wrong
not
side.
aware of Floridian geography.
That was a very interesting weekend of my life. But anyway, yeah, no, this is good. I mean, the more you know about stuff ahead of time.
Did you connect from Sarasota to Fort Lauderdale, or did you drive to Miami?
No, by the time we landed in Sarasota, the whole airport was shut down. It was like an emergency landing, and I got a rental car with two women I had never met before, and we drove.
Damn.
We drove to Miami together.
Did you guys hit a Taco Bell on the way?
I don't know what
that is a lonely, dark drive through Alligator Alley, which if you've never done it, it is pitch black. It is about a 40-minute stretch.
Well, and I don't want to say anything bad about these nice women who agreed to let me, be part of their trip. All three of us we were all traveling alone. So, I mean, we didn't know each other. I wouldn't say we'd be friends
in
IRL,
other circumstances. Yeah.
But it was like we all just were like, we need each other right now. Let's just get to
real
the
planes,
east.
trains, and automobiles.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So
I like who I am.
well, exactly. That's how everybody thought in the car. And like halfway through the trip, I was like, okay, let's just get out of this.
I'm the real deal.
Yep.
What you see is what you get.
We also got a good email from Andrew in Colorado writing in, agreeing with Nate Langson's rant last week about being bombarded with AI tooltips that he doesn't think he needs. Andrew says, I recently got Microsoft Copilot at work with the promise of it improving productivity. However, my first encounter with it was less than stellar. I was drafting an email to one of my direct reports when I got pulled into a conversation that distracted me for a few minutes. When I came back there was a pop-up that said, would you like some help finishing up this email? With the Copilot symbol next to it. Clippy 2.0, Andrew says, and abandon the email for another 10 minutes. Andrew says, I use AI for around 90% of my job right now. I don't need to be reminded to use it, especially on emails that need more of that personal touch. I'm with you on that one, Andrew. My Gemini stuff on in various Google Doc stuff, I've more or less just said like, yeah, don't remind me anymore. I don't. If I need it, I'll let you know. But no more pop-ups. Thank you.
Grammarly for me is the one. It's getting downright obnoxious, and I pay for Grammarly, so it's like, guys, you already have my money. Stop reminding me that I can use you for something that I'm already paying you to use. So that's just.
I think it is out and out a bad idea for adoption of a lot of these tools that obviously these companies really find to be important, existentially important for them. Knock it off. Either the products are going to be good and people are going to use them, or they're not. Stop reminding me, because I agree with you. It is a plague.
Well, if you have comments on this or anything we talk about, perhaps you have also driven from Sarasota to Miami in the dead heat of night in the summer when you just wanted to have a fun meal with your friends. You can send in all comments to feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. And of course, if you're a patron, we have lively conversations going on our Patreon all the time. You can comment on anything we post to Patreon as well. Justin Robert Young, what a pleasure to have you on a Monday. We used to do Mondays all the time. And we do Mondays all the time, but not with Robb Dunewood. So
But not with Robb, yeah.
Yeah, it feels kind of fun and different and cool. So let folks know what else you've been up to.
Well, much as when you drive from Sarasota to Miami, the sawgrass of the Everglades gives way to the bright, colorful oasis of Weston. You, dear listener, have another OpenAI podcast coming to you this Tuesday morning. It will go live, and it's another great conversation between our host, Andrew Main, and head of ChatGPT, Nick Turley, and head of OpenAI Research, Mark Chen. They reminisce about the launch of ChatGPT, what they were thinking about when they put it out there, as well as a lot more contemporary issues, including the launch of image gen and where they see some of these models coming from. It's a very rare opportunity to speak to and shows the connection of where research and product connect at that company. It's a great episode. Go get it tomorrow. The OpenAI podcast hosted by Andrew Main.
Excellent.
Well, thank you, Justin Robert Young, and thank you to our viewers who have been submitting show titles over at dtns.showbot.tv. I'm just going to go through a couple of them here. W. Scottus 1 chimes in with, "This is your brain on faster playback speeds."
Any questions?
JPEG 84 has got a good one, Windows MD. I don't know why I like that. I'm thinking of Trapper John MD, and I don't know, Windows MD. Probably shows how old I am.
Doogie Howser.
Let's see here. Canada, no tax for you, by Larry in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the soup Nazi. No text for you.
Lion Jim Video chimes in with the listening speed limit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Fred 819 chimes in with lust, but verify.
That's great. Oh, the Tinder
Talking
one.
about Tinder.
Yeah.
Oh,
So Sarah,
that's
what
good.
did we decide to go with today?
We went with JPEG 84's no digital tax on U.S.
Get it? U.S.
Get it?
A.
Yeah.
Like,
Canadian flair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
pretty good, eh?
Hey.
I mean, I'm sure there's a Canadian out there who's like, you didn't even do it right, Sarah.
I'm
Sorry.
sure Jen
I'm
Cutter will
trying,
come
I'm
here and
trying.
school us all on the distinct dialect of various Canadian accents.
Thanks to everybody for submitting and voting. That's the fun part of our show. DTNS.showbot.tv, bookmark it, and join us tomorrow if you would so desire. Roger, we've got some people to thank today, don't we?
Yes, we do. I'd like to give a shout out to everyone on Twitch chat who've been supporting us, like G. James B, who is sharing us on with 5 bits. Larry in Atlanta, who resubscribed with Prime. They've been subscribed for 55 months, double nickels. Zoe Brings Bacon turned us on with bits as well. And Dr. MXN resubscribed with Prime. They've been subscribed for 47 months. Thank you one and all for supporting us on the show.
Indeed. Speaking of support, if you want a new gift for a coworker or a loved one or just yourself, treat yourself. We got dozens of ideas at dailytechnewsshow.com/store. We got mugs, we've got t-shirts, we got mouse pads with our new DTNS Live logo, which we all like very much, and we would love to see more of them out in the wild. Good gifts, great way to support the show. Just a reminder, you can watch us live Monday through Friday. That's when we do it at 4 p.m. Eastern, 2000 UTC. And you can find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live. Thanks for watching and listening, everybody. We're back again tomorrow with Nika Montfort joining us. Talk to you then.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.